Hey, it's Kesha. Welcome and welcome back. We're in our next section of the reading of the Aquarian, where last week we had Jesus and John meeting again, as well as Jesus meeting 6 of his disciples. So before we get into this week's reading, let's go ahead and close our eyes and center. Take a deep breath in and let it out. Another deep breath in and out. Just feel yourself quietly and gently detaching from this physicality and busyness, stress, worry, boredom, anything external. Just feel that gently releasing as you turn your gaze inward. Notice how with each breath you're reestablishing your connection to yourself and to spirit. Feeling more whole and present. Feeling your heart open and your mind expand. Begin to gently see a column of white light coming down over you. Adding peace and knowing to the sense of calm. Feeling of all possibility, all awareness, all knowledge and understanding. Available to you and all around you present. Enjoy this natural elevation of your previous state. When you're ready, gently open your eyes. Here we are. All right. Now, on the morrow, Jesus came again and stood with John beside the ford. And John prevailed on him to speak, and standing forth, he said, "You men of Israel, hear, the kingdom is at hand. Behold, the great key keeper of the age stands in your midst, and with the spirit of Elijah he has come. Behold, for he has turned the key. The mighty gates fly wide, and all who may greet the king, and all who will may greet the king. Behold these multitudes of women, children, men. They throng the avenues, they crowd the outer courts. Each seems to be intent to be the first to meet the king. Behold, the censer comes and calls. Whoever will may come, but he who comes must will to prune himself of every evil thought, must overcome desire to gratify the lower self, must give his life to save the lost. The nearer to the kingdom gate you come, more spacious is the room. The multitudes have gone. If men could come unto the kingdom with their carnal thoughts, their passions and desires, there scarcely would be room for all. But when we cannot take these through the narrow gate, they turn away. The few are ready to go in and seek the king. Behold, John is a mighty fisher, fishing for the souls of men. He throws his great net out into the sea of human life. He draws it in, and it is full. But what a medley catch! A catch of crabs and lobsters, sharks and creeping things, with now and then a fish of better kind. Behold, the thousands come to hear the wild man of the hills. They come in crowds that he may wash them with the crystal flood. And with their lips they do confess their sins. But when the morrow comes, we find them in their haunts of vice again, reviling John and cursing God and heaping insults on the king. But blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see the king. And blessed are the strong in heart, for they shall not be cast about by every wind that blows. But while the fickle and the thoughtless have gone back to Egypt land for leeks and carnal herbs to satisfy their appetites, the pure in heart have found the king. But even those whose faith is weak, and who are not but carnal manifests, will someday come again, and enter in with joy to see the king. O men of Israel, take heed to what this prophet has to say. Be strong in mind, be pure in heart, be vigilant in helpfulness. The kingdom is at hand." When Jesus had thus said, he went his way, and with his 6 disciples came to Bethany, and they abode with Lazarus many days. The news soon spread abroad that Jesus, King of Israel, had come to Bethany, and all the people of the town came forth to greet the king. And Jesus, standing in the midst of them, exclaimed, "Behold, indeed the king has come, but Jesus is not king. The kingdom truly is at hand, but men can see it not with carnal eyes. They cannot see the king upon the throne. This is the kingdom of the soul. Its throne is not an earthly throne. Its king is not a man. When human kings found kingdoms here, they conquer other kings by force of arms. One kingdom rises on the ruins of another. But when our Father God sets upon the kingdom of the soul, he pours out his blessings forth like rain upon the thrones of earthly kings who rule in righteousness. It is not rule that God would overthrow. His sword is raised against injustice, wantonness, and crime. Now, while the kings of Rome do justice and love mercy and walk humbly with their God, the benediction of the triune God will rest upon them all. They need not fear a messenger whom God sends forth to earth. I am not sent to sit upon a throne to rule as Caesar rules, and you may tell the ruler of the Jews that I am not come a claimant for his throne. Men call me Christ, and God has recognized the name, but Christ is not a man. The Christ is universal love, and love is king. This Jesus is but man who has been fitted by temptations overcome, by trials multiform, to be the temple through which Christ can manifest to men. Then hear, you men of Israel, hear. Look not upon the flesh, it is not king. Look to the Christ within, who shall be formed in every one of you, as he is formed in me. When you have purified your hearts by faith, the king will enter in, and you will see his face. And then the people ask, what must we do that we may make our bodies fit abiding places for the king? And Jesus said, whatever tends to purity in thought and word and deed will cleanse the temple of the flesh. There are no rules that can apply to all, for men are specialists in sin. Each has his own besetting sin, and each must study for himself how he can best transmute his tendency to evil things to that of righteousness and love. Until men reach the higher plane and get away from selfishness, this rule will give the best results. Do unto other men what you would have them do to you. And many of the people said, we know that Jesus is the Christ, the King who was to come, and be blessed his name. Now Jesus with his 6 disciples turned their faces toward Jerusalem, and many people followed them. But Matthew, son of Alphaeus, ran on before, and when he reached Jerusalem, he said, behold, the Christians come. The multitude came forth to see the king, but Jesus did not speak to anyone until he reached the temple court. And then he opened up a book and read, behold, I send my messenger, and he will pave the way. And Christ, for whom you wait, will come into his temple unannounced. Behold, for he will come, says God, the Lord of hosts. And then he closed the book, and he said no more. He left the temple halls, and with the 6 disciples went his way to Nazareth. And they abode with Mary, Jesus' mother, and her sister Miriam. The next day, as Peter walked about in Nazareth, he met with the ruler of the synagogue, who asked, who is this Jesus lately come to Nazareth? And Peter said, this Jesus is the Christ of whom our prophets wrote. He is the King of Israel. His mother Mary lives on Marmion Way. The ruler said, tell him to come to the synagogue, for I would hear his plea. And Peter ran and told Jesus what the ruler said. But Jesus answered not. He went not to the synagogue. Then in the evening time the ruler came up Marmion Way, and in the home of Mary found Jesus and his mother all alone. And when the ruler asked for proof of his messiahship, and why he went not to the synagogue when he was bidden, Jesus said, I am not slave to any man. I am not called into this ministry by priest. It is not mine to answer when men call. I come the Christ of God. I answer unto God alone. Who gave you the right to ask for proof of my messiahship? My proof lies in my words and works, and so if you will follow me, you will not lack for proof. And then the ruler went his way. He asked himself, What manner of man is this to disregard the ruler of the synagogue? The people of the town came out in throngs to see the Christ and hear him speak, and Jesus said, "The prophet has no honor in his native town among his kin. I will not speak in Nazareth until the words I speak and the works I do in other towns have won the faith of men. Until men know that God has Christed me to manifest it. Until men know that God has Christed me to manifest eternal love. Goodwill to you, my kin. I bless you with a boundless love, and I bespeak for you abundant joy and happiness." He said no more, and all the people marveled much because he would not speak in Nazareth. I think we'll stop there for now. So, what has just happened? So John invites him to speak to the crowds, and Jesus tells them who John is, right? He's the mighty fisher of men. He's fishing for men's souls, but it's going to be a medley catch, right? It's going to be lots of types of people, not just lots of types of people, but people of different consciousnesses coming. And that the way to enter the kingdom is going to make yourself pure in thought and word and deed. And so as you get closer to the gates, there'll be fewer and fewer people because it becomes harder and harder. Just like the idea, fewer and fewer will commit to the task of purifying themselves in that way. And so there'll be fewer of us left at the gate, basically is the idea. Just like the closer and closer you get to perfection, the harder and harder it gets. I love that he tells the people straight out, like that he is not a king come to sit on the throne of Caesar. He's not there to supplant the power of, the priests and the synagogues. He's there to reveal the truth to the hearts of men and have them, see God in and through themselves. And that's such a simple message. And I think sometimes, it's so simple, it's ripe for misinterpretation, because how could it be so simple? It's kind of like when we're faced with what we think is a tricky problem, sometimes the best way to solve it is the simplest and most direct way, but we don't think it could really be that simple, so we look for something and solutions that are more complicated. The government, Caesar and rulers of the Jews, they're not going to be able to see what he says there and not still think that he's coming for their power. And so, that's going to be the crux of the drama, right? Them misunderstanding what his message is because they are threatened by the simplicity and authenticity of the message. And then too, he explains to the people, right? Because the people, when they hear that the king has come, they're expecting, a grand throne and gold and jewels and all those sort of like things that we think of as trappings for royalty. And he's like, no, the Christ is an office. It is, I'm here as a mantle and pattern for men to follow, but love is king. And it's a simple but bold and profound concept that I think, people will tend to miss because it is so simple. And then, he describes he's been fitted by temptations that he's overcome. He's faced many trials and overcome them as well. And, he's not different from them other than he has met with his trials, let love come forth, and is deciding to walk in that truth. So yeah. And even, it's interesting, so Matthew, he goes before and pronounces to everyone, oh, the Christines have come. And then when Jesus gets there, he quietly just goes to the temple and reads and says, when the king comes, there'll be a little fanfare. And it's like, well, Matthew, they're all new disciples at this point. They really don't fully understand the message that they're being taught and that they too will teach. And then, we have Peter who, runs into the priests of the synagogue And because the priest is the priest, when he tells Peter that to bring Jesus to me, or to have Jesus come to the temple that they can talk, Peter's expecting Jesus to run straight there and submit to that authority, because they are used to following authority. And Jesus doesn't recognize that, because, as he says, he answers only to God. So it's going to be interesting, right, to see how the people and the disciples reckon with this teaching and Jesus' expressions of it. And he's not come to sit on their earthly throne, and they're going to continue to misunderstand that, because they don't have a concept for one who can come and teach and not be asked to, and who's not seeking power for themselves, or that worldly ambition that they're also used to and familiar with. It's going to be interesting. And I think that really kind of takes us to the end. A lot of poetry in this section, but there always is. I mean, that's one of the things I love about the Aquarian. And I had to smile and laugh, because the idea that, Mary, Jesus' mom, she lives over on Marmion Way. Like, it's just around the corner. Like, there's an actual street name for it. That's a nice little detail. I think that is kind of cute. All right, good people. We will digest this for the week and then come back in the next and see what's next. All right, I look forward to it. I'll see you. Love you in the meantime. Bye.